When an avoidant says, "Let's be friends," they are not speaking the same emotional language you are. You hear something gentle, respectful, maybe even hopeful, a softer version of letting go. But an avoidant doesn't choose those words because they want friendship. They choose them because they are terrified of the emotional truth that love with you awakened inside them. Friends is not friendship. Friends is not clarity. Friends is not closure. For an avoidant, "Let's be friends" is a coded message, a psychological shield, a way of saying something they don't have the strength, courage, or emotional literacy to express. What they really mean is, "I can't handle what I feel for you, but I also can't handle losing you." Avoidants live their lives avoiding emotional intensity because intensity threatens their sense of control. Love requires closeness, vulnerability, accountability, all the things their nervous system interprets as danger. So when they reach that emotional threshold with you, when the connection becomes too real, when you get too close to the softest parts of them, their instinct is to retreat. Not because of you, but because of their fear of themselves. And instead of disappearing completely, which is what they would do if they truly didn't care, they offer this thin bridge, friendship. It's the safest emotional compromise they can come up with. To them, friends means safety. It means distance. It means protection. It means lowering the emotional temperature so they don't spiral into panic. But hidden inside that word is a longing they refuse to acknowledge. If they felt nothing, they wouldn't be offering times anything asterisk. They wouldn't negotiate. They wouldn't soften the landing. They wouldn't ask you to remain in their orbit. The fact that they offer friendship is the clearest evidence that your presence still matters to them. They can't say, "I'm scared of how deeply I feel." So they say, "Let's be friends." They can't say, "I still want you around." So they say, "Let's be friends." They can't say, "I need space but don't want you gone." So they say, "Let's be friends." But beneath the surface, their mind is screaming something far more complicated. They are terrified of the pressure of romantic commitment, but terrified of the emptiness of losing you completely. They are torn between the safety of distance and the comfort of your emotional presence. Friends allows them to sit in the middle, not fully in, not fully out, not committed, not disconnected, not loving, not leaving. It's an emotional limbo that feels manageable to them because it gives them the illusion of control while still keeping the emotional benefits they got from you. But the deeper truth is this: "Let's be friends" is the only way they know how to say, "I'm overwhelmed by how much I care." Because friendship feels less threatening, it feels less demanding. It feels like a way to reset, to breathe, to calm down the emotional fire you ignited in them. They don't want to lose the comfort of your presence, your validation, your understanding. They don't want to lose the emotional stability you offered. They don't want to lose the familiarity of you. But they are terrified of stepping into something deeper. This sentence also reveals their emotional immaturity. Instead of saying, "I need time to regulate my feelings," they hide behind the simplicity of friendship. Instead of admitting they're afraid of intimacy, they ask for a safe version of it. Instead of facing the truth about their attachment wounds, they offer you a relationship that requires nothing from them, but keeps giving them access to your energy. So when an avoidant says, "Let's be friends," understand that the surface-level meaning is nearly irrelevant. They're not telling you they don't care. They're telling you they care in a way they can't manage. They're not telling you they're done. They're telling you they're overwhelmed. They're not telling you you're only friend material. They're telling you that you touched a part of them they don't know how to navigate. "Let's be friends" is not the end. It's the emotional translation of, "Please don't disappear. I'm just not ready to meet you where you are." When an avoidant says, "Let's be friends," what they're really doing is building a bridge that lets them keep you close while avoiding the emotional depth that scared them in the first place. They don't want to lose you, but they also don't want to stand fully in the intimacy you offered. So they choose this halfway space, a space where they can still access your warmth, still feel connected, still receive emotional benefits without feeling the pressure of being your partner. It's not friendship, it's emotional management. It's not closeness, it's controlled closeness. It's their attempt to craft a relationship where they can have you, but not have to rise to the level of vulnerability you deserve. This friendship isn't about platonic connection, it's about fear. Losing you completely feels too painful, too final, too destabilizing for them, but being with you romantically feels too overwhelming, too exposing, too threatening. So they reach for the one thing that feels like a compromise, staying in your life without having to face their own emotional limitations. They think friendship gives them safety, safety from expectations, safety from pressure, safety from disappointing you, safety from admitting their feelings, safety from the parts of love that trigger their deepest wounds. But inside this safety, something else is happening. They want access to you. They want your presence, your support, your understanding, your energy. Even if they don't say the words, even if they act detached, they don't want to watch you walk away. They don't want the door closed. They don't want the connection erased. They want you close enough to comfort their heart, but far enough that they can still retreat whenever their fear gets loud. This is how they maintain emotional control while still keeping the one person who made them feel something real. And that's the confusing part. They treat you like more than a friend, but call you friend so you can't hold them accountable. They lean on you emotionally, but hide behind the title so they don't have to show vulnerability. They want the connection without the responsibility. They want the benefits without the risks. They want your loyalty without having to offer commitment. They want the closeness of love without the label of love. It's not because they're selfish, it's because they're terrified. They're terrified of losing control. They're terrified of being needed. They're terrified of being expected to show up fully. Friendship feels like a safer version of connection where they can protect themselves from the weight of romantic intimacy. The truth is that avoidants don't ask to stay friends unless you matter to them. They don't keep people around for fun. They don't cling to connections out of boredom. They keep you around because emotionally, they're not done with you. They just don't know how to stay in a romantic space without feeling like they're drowning. They're conflicted. They want you. They fear you. They need you. They can't handle you. So they try to build a container where they can have the parts of you that feel comforting while avoiding the parts of love that feel terrifying. And this is where you feel the emotional contradiction, because being friends with them feels nothing like friendship. It feels like tension. It feels like unfinished business. It feels like a connection trapped in a holding pattern. They smile at you like a partner. They rely on you like a partner. They get jealous like a partner. They miss you like a partner. But they hide behind the word friend so they don't have to face the truth. They still feel something they don't know how to handle. They're not asking for friendship. They're asking for proximity without vulnerability. They're asking for connection without commitment. They're asking to keep you without earning you. This is why friends with an avoidant still feels like you're in a relationship, but a relationship they refuse to name. Because deep down, they're trying to protect themselves from love while still staying close to the one person who made them feel it. If you want the breakdown of Keynote 3 inches, the same powerful style, just tell me. The moment an avoidant says, "Let's be friends," they are not offering peace, they are protecting themselves from emotional exposure. And the fear behind that soft exit is far deeper, far more complicated, and far more painful than most people ever realize. Avoidants don't downgrade love because the love was weak. They downgrade it because the love was times too strong, too intense, too real, too raw, too close to touching the one wound they've spent their entire lives hiding. Let's be friends is not an ending. It's a shield they throw up the second their heart starts feeling what their mind can't control. What they're really scared of isn't you. It's the version of themselves they become around you. They feel vulnerable, exposed, seen, and that level of emotional openness terrifies them. With you, they felt things they couldn't push away. The closeness cracked their armor. The intimacy awakened needs they denied for years. The connection stirred emotions they didn't know how to manage. And the moment they felt the intensity of it, their brain went into emotional survival mode. Retreat, soften, downgrade, create distance, protect yourself before you get hurt. But here's the truth they hope you never see. If they truly didn't care, they would leave completely. Avoidants don't negotiate with connections they feel nothing for. They disappear. They vanish. They cut the cord with zero warning. The fact that they're trying to gently reduce the intensity means you impacted them more than they expected. Their fear of abandonment is clashing with their fear of intimacy, and friendship becomes their temporary escape route from a fire they don't know how to stand inside. They're telling you, "I can't stay this close. It's too much for me." But they soften the message because losing you entirely feels too painful. They are torn in two directions. A part of them wants to stay, desperately, but their fear insists that closeness will destroy them. They fear needing you. They fear depending on you. They fear disappointing you. They fear being seen too deeply. So they try to shrink the connection into something more manageable, something that doesn't threaten their emotional defenses. That's why friends sounds kind, but feels wrong. Because it is times wrong. It's not what they want, it's what their fear demands. Inside them, a storm is happening. They're overwhelmed by feelings they can't regulate. They're afraid of hurting you by staying. They're afraid of hurting themselves by leaving. They're afraid of messing up the connection because they don't trust themselves to love the right way. So instead of saying any of that, they give you the sentence that feels safest, softest, least painful. Let's be friends. But emotionally, they're not calm, they're not stable, they're not unaffected. They're running from the intensity, running from responsibility, running from the pressure of being loved too deeply, running from the version of themselves that wants you but doesn't know how to show up for you. And in their mind, downgrading the relationship feels like a way to hit pause, a way to breathe, a way to regain control. They think friendship will reduce the emotional weight so they can function again. What they don't understand is that the fear they're protecting themselves from is actually their own reflection. Because the intimacy you offered didn't scare them because it was wrong, it scared them because it was right, because it was real, because it touched a part of them they buried a long time ago, because it forced them to feel something they didn't believe they were capable of. And that realization overwhelms them to the point where pulling back feels like the only way to survive. So let's be friends is not a rejection of you. It's a reaction to the tidal wave of emotion they felt with you. It's the line they use when love becomes too close to their wounds. It's the sentence they hide behind when their fear becomes louder than their desire. It's not proof of indifference, it's proof of overwhelm. They weren't trying to downgrade you. They were trying to protect themselves from the depth of what you made them feel. When an avoidant says, "Let's be friends," what follows afterward is the strangest, most confusing emotional experience because being friends with them doesn't feel like friendship at all. It feels like you're still in a relationship, but a relationship you're not allowed to touch, define, or rely on. It feels like something unfinished, unresolved, half alive and half hidden. And this is where the emotional trap begins, because the avoidant didn't ask for friendship to build something new. They asked for friendship to preserve something, the connection, the closeness, the comfort, without stepping into the responsibility of it. That's why this version of friendship feels like a relationship stuck behind glass. You can see it, you can feel it, but you can't reach it. Avoidants don't operate in clean emotional boundaries. They don't move from lover to friend with clarity, honesty, or closure. They move in emotional fragments. They keep pieces of you, pieces of the connection, pieces of the intimacy. They'll still message you at odd hours. They'll still look at you with softness in their eyes. They'll still react when you pull away. They'll still feel jealous when you give your attention to someone else. They'll still reach for you emotionally when they're overwhelmed. But they'll call it friendship so they don't have to admit what they're really feeling. You start to notice that the way they talk to you feels more like a partner than a friend. They seek emotional support from you. They ask for your presence. They share things they don't share with anyone else. They pay attention to your moods. They want reassurance from you. And yet, they give you none of the emotional safety or commitment that a real relationship requires. It's a 1 foot in, 1 foot out dynamic that keeps you emotionally attached but never emotionally secure. And this is exactly how an avoidant maintains control. They keep the connection alive just enough so they don't feel like they've lost you, but not close enough that they feel accountable. They want the comfort of your closeness without the vulnerability of being claimed. They want the warmth of your presence without the responsibility of showing up. They want access to your heart without having to open theirs. Friendship becomes their emotional safe word, a label that allows them to disconnect from the pressure of love while still benefiting from the parts of you that feel like home. This is why friends feels like emotional limbo. You're still getting intimacy but not commitment. You're still getting connection but not clarity. You're still getting emotional closeness but not emotional security. They respond when they want, disappear when they need space, return when they feel lonely, withdraw when they feel overwhelmed. And because they call it friendship, they feel justified in doing all of this, even though the dynamic looks nothing like real friendship. The most painful part is how they treat your emotional bond. They act like the connection is still special, still sacred, still meaningful, but they also act like they don't owe you anything. They want emotional closeness without emotional consequence, and that puts you in a position where you feel the connection deeply but can't claim it openly, where you sense the tenderness but can't touch it, where you feel chosen and abandoned at the same time. They talk to you in a warm tone that friends don't use. They remember details like someone who cared. They share thoughts like someone who trusts. They look at you like someone who still feels something. And yet, every time the connection becomes too real, they retreat behind the word friend like a shield. That's why the dynamic feels like a relationship you're not allowed to acknowledge, because it times is times one, but it's trapped inside a boundary they put there to protect themselves. What you must understand is that this version of friendship is not neutral. It's not clean. It's not platonic. It is an emotional extension of the relationship that was too overwhelming for them to manage. They downgraded the label, not the connection. And that's why you feel the intensity, the attachment, the tension, because the emotional bond never broke. It just got pushed into a category where they feel safer, even if you don't. You're not imagining it. You're not overthinking it. This isn't friendship, it's the relationship they're too afraid to fully claim, stuck in a space where only their times fear feels protected, and your heart is left reaching for something you can feel but cannot touch. When an avoidant says, "Let's be friends," what they're really doing is keeping access to the emotional benefits you gave them, the comfort, the validation, the sense of safety, the soothing energy without having to give anything back. They don't do this maliciously. They don't do it to hurt you. They do it because you fulfilled emotional needs they don't know how to fulfill themselves. You became a stabilizing force in their life, a source of warmth they didn't expect, and a voice that calmed storms they never talk about. And even though their fear pushed them away romantically, their attachment to what you represented is still very much alive. Avoidants struggle with emotional regulation. They don't know how to soothe themselves when they feel overwhelmed. They don't know how to manage conflict, anxiety, or closeness without feeling like they're losing control. When they were with you, even in moments of distance or conflict, your presence grounded them in ways they didn't understand. You became the emotional, secure base they quietly leaned on. You were the one person who didn't overreact to their silence. You were the one who understood their moods. You were the one who made their inner chaos feel less chaotic. These experiences form a bond, not the kind they can articulate, but the kind they feel in their nervous system. So when they say, "Let's be friends," what they really want is continued access to these emotional benefits. They want a version of you that still cares about them, still supports them, still listens to them, still comforts them, still helps them feel less alone without the demands that come with romantic commitment. They want your softness without the pressure. They want your patience without the expectation. They want your presence without the vulnerability of having to reciprocate. They want the parts of you that make them feel emotionally safe, without the parts that challenge their fear of intimacy. And so you'll notice something strange. They reach out when they're emotionally low. They talk to you when they're stressed. They seek your approval without calling it that. They tell you things they don't tell others. They rely on your understanding. They come to you for comfort, but they offer nothing that solidifies the connection. They keep the door open just enough to stay emotionally fed, but closed enough to avoid the responsibility of love. They may text you when they're lonely, but disappear when you're the one who needs support. They may open up when they're overwhelmed, but shut down when you ask for clarity. They may feel jealous if you pull away, but act indifferent if you ask what they want. They may feel comforted by your presence, but terrified by your expectations. This emotional inconsistency isn't because they don't care. It's because they care in a fragmented, wounded, avoidant way, where closeness feels good, but commitment feels threatening. Friendship becomes their way of receiving the emotional nourishment they crave without exposing themselves to the vulnerability they fear. The truth is, you gave them something they don't know how to recreate with anyone else. You offered emotional depth they're not used to. You brought stability into a nervous system that's always on guard. You made them feel seen in ways they didn't think were possible, And even if they can't give that back to you, they don't want to lose the feeling entirely. So they try to hold on to the connection through a label that feels safer for them. But here's the hardest truth. They're getting emotional benefits from you, while you get emotional confusion from them. You end up giving the warmth, the presence, the support, while they take just enough to stay comfortable. You give what feels like relationship energy, but they return only what fits inside their fear-controlled limits. They're not trying to use you. They're trying to regulate themselves with the one person who ever made them feel calm. But the result is the same. They stay emotionally nourished, while you stay emotionally starving. And until they face their fears, that imbalance won't change, because friendship for them is not friendship at all. It's emotional dependence dressed up as distance. Before you ever agree to be just friends with an avoidant, you must understand the deepest truth hiding underneath that request. A truth that will protect your heart from confusion, attachment, and emotional exhaustion. The truth is this: when an avoidant asks for friendship, they are not offering a clean, safe, equal connection. They are offering a dynamic built to protect times their times wounds, not times your times well-being. And unless you see that clearly, you will walk straight into an emotional trap that feels like connection but denies you the love, reciprocity, and security you deserve. The harsh truth is that an avoidance version of friendship isn't friendship at all. It's a halfway relationship where they get emotional closeness without responsibility. It's a space where you give more than you get. It's a dynamic where their fear comes first and your needs come last. They will stay close enough to feel safe with you, but far enough to avoid committing to you. They will show affection when they need comfort, but withdraw when you need reassurance. They will seek your emotional presence but avoid offering their own. This is not malicious, it's instinct. But instincts can still break hearts. You must understand that when they say friends, they are not thinking about what friendship will mean for times you asterisk. They are thinking about what it will protect in times them asterisk. It protects them from vulnerability. It protects them from intimacy. It protects them from needing too much, caring too deeply, or showing too honestly. It protects them from the emotional accountability they don't know how to hold. They are trying to create a version of connection where they feel safe even if you feel confused or unfulfilled. And this leads to the harshest truth of all. If you accept their offer, you are stepping into a dynamic where you will be emotionally available while they remain emotionally limited. You will keep loving in ways they cannot match. You will keep giving softness they cannot return. You will keep hoping for clarity they cannot offer. Friendship with an avoidant often traps you in the role of an emotional partner without the recognition, commitment, or consistency of one. You need to understand that staying friends does not heal the connection. It freezes it in place. It doesn't allow growth, it allows avoidance. It doesn't invite vulnerability, it protects fear. It doesn't create safety for you, it creates safety for them. And because they still feel attached to you, they will send mixed signals that keep your heart anchored to possibilities that they themselves are running from. They will look at you the same way they looked at you before. They will treat you with tenderness on some days and coldness on others. They will act jealous without admitting affection. They will stay emotionally close enough to keep you from detaching, and distant enough to keep themselves from committing. If you don't understand this dynamic before agreeing to friendship, you will blame yourself for every inconsistency you feel. You will think you're doing something wrong when they pull away. You will think you're reading too much into things when they come close. You will think you're overreacting to the tension when the tension is built into the dynamic itself. Their fear shapes the relationship. Your hope sustains it. And neither of those things can create the connection you truly deserve. This is why you must know the truth before you say yes. An avoidance friendship is not a place where your heart heals. It's a place where your heart waits. It waits for clarity they cannot give. It waits for consistency they cannot maintain. It waits for commitment they are not ready to offer. You become emotionally tethered to someone who gets to choose closeness on their terms, while you sacrifice your desires to keep the peace. You deserve to understand this before stepping into their version of friendship, because once you're inside it, the emotional fog is thick. You will confuse crumbs for connection. You will confuse their fear for care. You will confuse their mixed signals for hope. But knowing the truth now protects you from losing yourself in a dynamic designed to protect their wounds, not honor your heart. And once you understand that, you will see their offer for what it truly is. A boundary that keeps times them times safe, and keeps times you times waiting for a love they're too afraid to claim.